movie takes place in the United States of America in the 1950s. Jack and Alice live in an ideal neighborhood enjoying a special luxury. There is always a juicy steak on their dinner table, they drive an expensive car, and they do not deny themselves anything. Of course, there are other couples living in the neighborhood with whom the protagonists maintain friendly relations. Every day, Jack and the other men go to work in the desert, while Alice and the other women stay at home to do the housework. They take care of the comfort, clean, cook delicious food, and wait for their husbands to return. The women know almost nothing about their husband's work. The only thing they know is that there is a secret project called Victory. However, they do not know what exactly their loved ones are doing. However, this does not bother anyone, because there are only two rules here. Do not ask unnecessary questions, and do not enter the desert that surrounds this town. It is believed that by leaving a safe place, they put their lives in incredible danger. In their free time, Alice's friends Bunny and Peg go to ballet classes and shop in a fancy store. They used to be friends with another housewife, but she developed mental disabilities, which ended their friendship. It turned out that she had taken her son to the desert, thereby deliberately endangering him. As a result, the boy died. However, Margaret is sure that it was a punishment for her curiosity. One day, all the residents of the neighborhood gather for a party hosted by Frank and his wife Shelley. He is the most powerful man here, and all the men work for him. Everyone is having fun and enjoying the celebration. But suddenly Margaret appears and says an unusual phrase, "We don't belong here." No one paid much attention to this, but Alice was disturbed to hear it. Later she sees Margaret's husband take her to a distant room and try to give her medicine. Alice is confused and tries to tell Jack, but he doesn't let her speak and ignores what his wife says. When Alice was cooking dinner, she noticed that the chicken eggs were empty inside. She can't believe her eyes and decides to calm down by going to the city to relax. She takes the tram and makes a few laps. Soon, Alice is surprised to see a plane crash. The plane has crashed high in the mountains. She knows that it is strictly forbidden to go there, because it can be very dangerous, but she goes to the crash site anyway, because the pilot may need help. Once at the top of the mountain, she discovers a dome-shaped building. Alice tries to call for help from other people, and when she touches the window, she begins to hallucinate. She doesn't understand what is happening, and a moment later, she loses consciousness. When she wakes up in her home, she hears Jack doing something in the kitchen. She was surprised because her husband never came home from work so early. She also doesn't remember how she got home or who brought her home. When she asks Jack what he saw when he came home, she doesn't get any answers because Jack says that she was already here, and he doesn't believe her story about the airplane because he thinks it's made up. Gradually, Alice's life turns into a nightmare. Hallucinations and paranoid thoughts completely take over. Soon, during a ballet class, she sees something strange in the mirror. To be more precise, she sees Margaret's death. Then she decides to talk to her and goes to her house. But she doesn't have time because Margaret is standing on the roof, sending herself to the other side and jumping down. Suddenly, men in red appear and take Alice away from the body. While waiting for her husband to come home from work, Alice decides to talk to him, expressing her suspicions and fears. However, he does not believe her and thinks that his wife is making it all up. The man convinces her that everything she is saying is a result of shock, and that Margaret was just washing the windows and accidentally fell down. Additionally, Dr. Collins, Frank's partner, confirms Jack's version of events and prescribes Alice a sedative. At this time, she notices a document in his bag with the heading, "Security Threat." Alice decides to quietly steal it to find out the truth, but she is unable to read the notes and get closer to the solution. Alice is at a loss. Is she really going crazy? She has no definite answer, so she decides to find out the truth at any cost. The next day, all the residents of the town go to a party dedicated to the Victory. At some point, Alice realizes that she can no longer stay in the company of these people and asks Jack to go home. But he doesn't listen to her because Frank is making him his partner, and this is a very important event for him. Unable to hold back her emotions any longer, Alice goes to the ladies' room where her friend Bunny comes in. She tries to ask Alice what is going on with her. Then the girl tells her about all her suspicions and thoughts, but her friend does not believe her either. She suggests that she put these nonsense out of her mind and go to the hall with the other guests to rejoice with them about Jack's promotion. A few days later, Alice and her husband invite their neighbors over. In addition to Bunny, they also invited Frank and his wife. While Jack was busy making small talk with his friends, Frank came to Alice's kitchen. He knows about her conversation with Bunny and transparently hints to the girl that she is right in her assumptions, but still cannot figure out everything. Shocked by the project manager's bluntness, Alice decides to expose him at the dinner table. It turns out that most of the couples have the same dating history. They honeymooned in the same places and were even born in the same cities. Alice tries to open everyone's eyes to the truth, but no one believes her. Everyone thinks she's crazy, just like Margaret. When all the guests have gone home, Alice tries to talk to Jack again. She asks him for only one thing: to leave this cursed place with her. To her surprise, the man agrees and she goes to pack her things. However, once in the car, it becomes clear that he was not going to leave. Jack betrayed her by allowing the men in red suits to take his beloved woman away from him. Dr. Collins and his colleagues subject Alice to electroshock therapy. During this torture, the heroine sees her past life, which turns out to be her true reality. It turns out that she is an experienced surgeon who worked around the clock to earn more money and ensure her existence, as Jack was unemployed. After a while, Alice returns to Jack's house. She doesn't remember the last events, but the hallucinations still haunt her. When everyone thinks that everything is fine with her, Alice remembers the truth. The fact is that Project Victory is a simulation that Frank once created. It turns out that Jack knew everything, and moreover, it was he who forced her to become part of this fictional world against her will. When Jack realized that Alice had found out the truth, he decided to try to keep her. The guy swears that he did it for their own good, so that they could live a perfect life. The woman is horrified and does not know what to do with this information. Jack tells her about the conditions of such membership in this community. It turns out that men take responsibility for their wives, deliberately forcing them to enter the simulation. The people here are only seemingly real. Their real bodies are in a kind of coma under the influence of special lenses. Alice wants to return to normal life, but Jack does not let her go, holding her tightly in his arms. That's why, in order to free herself, the heroine grabs a glass and hits the man, after which Jack falls lifelessly to the floor. Meanwhile, Frank is told that Jack is dead, and he sends his men to get Alice. The girl has almost no time left because the alarm has already sounded on the streets. Bunny runs into the house and asks the heroine to run away. It turns out that her friend knows about the simulation, and she consciously chose this life because she has children here whom she lost in the real world. Bunny tries to explain that Jack died not only in the virtual world but also in the real world, which means that no one can disconnect her from the simulation. She needs to get out of here and run away as soon as possible because she is in great danger. As she walked outside in her bloody dress, she noticed that the other men started to panic, and then the other women started to suspect something as well. Meanwhile, while Frank was on the phone, Shelley decided to eliminate him. She wants to regain control of her mind, so she had no other choice. Alice guesses that in order to return to reality, she needs to get to the top of the mountain, to the same building. She gets into Jack's car and tries to escape. They immediately start chasing her because they don't want her to return to the real world, because then they will lose her forever. The woman managed to get to the top of the mountain. However, before she takes the last step, she sees Jack. He asks her to stay, but she doesn't want to live in the world of illusions anymore. Alice touches the window, thus leaving the simulation forever.